Hi guys, welcome to today's sales session. And as I said last time, today we want to talk about objection handling. I'll tell you a story. The largest sales deal, my team and I ever closed. The first day we went to see the client and we were talking about, these are the kind of things we want to do, blah, 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 this is how we're going to help solve your problem, blah, 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 blah. The client had looked me straight in the eye and told me, boom, 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 boom. These are the reasons why we will never do this with you. I cannot see us getting this solution from you guys. That was a downer. That was a downer. And as a salesperson, you will get a lot of that. Because you go home, feel sad and all that. But what do you do? And that's what we call objection handling. What do you do when a client, maybe because of price, timelines, or solution fits, or various reasons, tells you no, I'm not interested, it doesn't make sense, it wouldn't work for us? And that's what we call objection handling. And this was inspired by a question someone sent to me. Someone asked me during a session I had. I think one thing, first of all, is good to listen. You have to learn to manage your emotion and listen. I keep talking about active listening. 2, no matter what, acknowledge it. You gotta validate that you can hear. You have to say, I hear you, John, when you say that you don't think the solution is a good fit for XYZ. Or I understand, you gotta acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge it first before you try to address it, which is the next thing I would say. You could try to provide more information, talk about the benefits, address the concerns they've raised, because especially if you're asking open-ended questions, you would try to dig deeper to the no. There's always a reason for the no. Nobody just goes around saying no. Maybe the reason is they don't have enough budget, not the right timing, that's not the right stakeholder, they can't give you approval, timeline is too long for them. They're worried because they've seen somebody else do it and it didn't work out well. So you're asking all this open-ended question, which is really important. You will get it out. So don't even jump into try to, talk about the benefits and the features. Try and address the concerns by, first of all, trying to understand the reason for the underlying no. Ask a lot of open-ended questions. And you could decide if you want to address them there or you're going to go back and come. But I'll prefer if you can, address them there. But it doesn't mean that all the time, because you addressed it, the client is going to be like, yes, now I want to go. No, especially for complex solutions, it doesn't end there. Now, 2 things I'm going to suggest you could also do, which I've used, so that you don't lose track of the reason why you're having the meeting. 1, there's a flip method. And that's the method you will use to clarify when a client, tells you that no. You're going to acknowledge it, but flip it back to the client. Ask them those open-ended questions. So tell me, when you say that you never see X, Y, and Z doing that solution or buying from us, could you tell me more? An example. Or tell me more when you say that, when you say this solution is not a good fit. Because in telling you more, you could understand what is really driving it, and then you can try to address it with all the things we're talking about. Now, the second one I would say uses, I normally would use that, especially if I feel like the question is not anything to do with what we're talking about here. Sometimes clients will go off on a tangent, is to validate and pivot. So you acknowledge what the client has said, but you pivot. You bring it back to the discussion. So for example, we're talking about, the solution we have has this and that, can address this. And I think you guys had mentioned you have that. And the client will be like, no, whatever, and something used it. And after they used it, business has never been the same. Their business collapsed. And I think it's because sometimes you have to learn to pivot, especially if you try to address it and it's got nothing to do with what you're talking about, or is outside the scope and it can be distracting, because sometimes clients can come with but I sent you an email, or I sent somebody in your team an email about this problem we had and nobody ever responded, you know, stuff like that. So you try and address it, but you try and do what we say, which is to validate it and actually pivot it. So I would acknowledge. So I hear you when you say our customer support hasn't been at par to what you expect. I will take it back with the team. But I would like us to continue talking about the solution I was trying to talk to you about, and let's see if it's something that will fit you. So that's a good example of how you could validate the client, pivot, and bring it back to the discussion. Yeah, so those are two things I think you could do when you're faced. But the baseline is that you have to listen. You have to really, really acknowledge. Don't ignore whatever concerns or no's you've heard. Really validate it, acknowledge it. You could try to address it or talk about the benefits, but I think it's more important you try to clarify and ask open-ended questions. So you can use the flip method, or you can use where you pivot, you know, and bring the discussion back to the main reason for your session. I hope this helps you. Have a lovely Thursday. Thank you.